Wetlands. Do you take the time to stop and notice them? We have a lot of them here in Ottawa. This is the Goulburn Wetland Complex, some 906 hectares just west of the suburb of Stittsville.
I really feel like wetlands are so maligned in our common language, right? We say things like drain the swamp, or we say, oh, I'm so bogged down, or I'm so mired in something. And it's really unfortunate because wetlands are really working hard for us.
Marshes, swamps, fens, bogs, they do a lot of jobs. They soak up water in floods, they release it in droughts, they purify water, and they're home to a quarter of Ontario's species at risk. Not all wetlands do all these jobs, but the superheroes get labeled provincially significant wetlands. That means you can't disrupt them and you can't develop them. 2 years ago, the Ontario government rewrote how these wetlands are scored for protection. We'll get to that in a moment. It was pretty controversial, but you didn't hear much about it after that. And then there was this agenda item at Ottawa City Council.
So we will go back to item 11.2, which is the Wetland Omnibus Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment.
Okay, I'll forgive you if that didn't immediately grab your attention, but here's what it meant. 55 hectares in the Goulburn Wetland Complex lost their provincially significant status. 55 hectares equals about 6 Parliament Hills or 11 Rogers Centres where the Blue Jays play. Ottawa is one of the first places where environmental advocates noticed provincially significant wetlands falling off the map. They say they've noticed 10 times more across Ontario in the last year and a half. Let's take a look at what's going on. Since the early 1980s, the Ontario government has had this manual, hundreds of pages. It tells evaluators how to score a wetland's soil, its species, and how to draw the line to mark the wetland's edges, because mapping has led to some battles over the years. After all, a property's value is low when the owner can't do much with their land. Fast forward to November 2022. What a month. The Ontario government made a flurry of changes aimed at getting housing built. It told Hamilton and Ottawa to develop more suburb. It swapped lands out of the Greenbelt in the GTA. The Ford government would later roll back both those changes. But that November, it also made major edits to the manual for identifying wetlands. Check out all that strike through. The government said it needed to streamline the process, get rid of duplication. 15,000 people and groups sent in comments. That's unusual. Nevertheless, the updated scorecard for wetlands took effect a few months later. Here are some key changes you should know. 1, species at risk don't get quite so many points anymore. 2, a wetland is scored on its own, not part of a bigger complex with all the nearby wetlands. And 3, the M&R no longer does any review, nor does it have final say. Instead, a wetland evaluator is hired to do a report. They've had a week-long course and they've done an exam. They do their report, that's it. They send the cities a copy and they send the M&R a shapefile to upload and the map is changed. That's that. The provincial government said that this was to better recognize the professional opinion of wetland evaluators. Janet Stavinga has watched this wetland for 30 years. She says the Ontario government has rolled back decades of progress.
Well, it's completely ludicrous to exclude the competency of the Minister of Natural Resources. I mean, they have a skill set to evaluate the wetlands. Those reports also used to be available for public review. That is not the case anymore.
And it makes it very hard to track.
You don't know when the wetland evaluations are taking place. You don't necessarily know who's undertaken them. And you don't even know whether it changes until you actually look at the map that the province provides and you see where did that wetland, provincially significant wetland, go?
The group Ontario Nature in Toronto is crunching data, trying to figure out where wetland lines are shifting.
This is an onerous kind of manual, case-by-case basis to dig into the details, so no one's really playing that kind of oversight role.
It says it has found 600 hectares in total so far. There's a spot on Lake Simcoe it wants to look into, another in Fort Erie. We asked the M&R how many hectares have been lost or gained on its map. Here's what it said. The changes to the Ontario Wetland Evaluation System did not change the status of existing evaluated wetlands. Yes, but here in Ottawa, some wetlands were opened for rescoring and lost their status. So what does it mean? Is it open season for development on wetlands? Well, no, the City of Ottawa has given a different local label to protect them, but some worry about dropping that responsibility down to the local level. Some towns and townships only have one planner. They're not likely to have biology expertise on staff. Will they create that local level of protection? Will it hold up?
There isn't really a consistent approach across the province, and wetlands are too valuable for that kind of piecemeal approach.
CBC sent specific questions to the Minister of Natural Resources, Graydon Smith. None of those questions was answered, but we did receive a statement about the $30 million the government is spending. That's for conservation groups across Ontario to restore hundreds of hectares of wetlands or create new ones. Those projects are clearly listed on the government's website, quite unlike the provincially significant wetlands that are changing shape or losing their designations entirely. Janet Stavinga says her group sprang up because of worries over wetlands.
We need a call to action. That's happening in Stittsville through the Friends of Stittsville Wetlands, but that also needs to ripple right across the province.
It's only been a year or two since the new scorecard, and Ottawa is down 55 hectares. So is this the start of a new trend? Well, that's something we're going to have to wade through in the years to come.